In Kakot village, Homa Bay County, Albert Ojwang was more than a teacher, he was a digital activist. By day, he shaped young minds in a rural classroom. By night, he challenged authority on X, formerly Twitter, calling out powerful figures like Deputy Inspector General Eliud Lagat. Albert's sharp, fearless commentary made him a beacon for thousands of Kenyans demanding transparency and justice. He wasn't seeking fame. He was driven by a passion for a better Kenya. Friends described him as thoughtful, committed, and unafraid to hold leaders accountable. As part of Gen Z, Albert embodied a new wave of activism, using social media to amplify the frustrations and hopes of ordinary citizens. His dual identity, humble teacher and bold digital critic, defined him. But in a country where digital dissent is increasingly seen as a threat, Albert's courage would soon put him in the crosshairs of the state. His story would become a warning and a rallying cry for all who dare to speak out. On June 7, 2025, Albert's family lunch was interrupted by 6 plainclothes detectives from the DCI. Without a warrant, they handcuffed him, citing only a vague accusation, insulting a senior person on X. Albert was taken first to Mwego police station, then, under cover of darkness, transferred 350 kilometers to Nairobi. His father, Meshach, followed desperately, seeking answers and justice. The state later charged Albert with false publication, a term that did little to justify the harsh response. The journey from Homa Bay to Nairobi was more than physical. It was a passage from safety to peril, stripping Albert of community support. For his family and followers, this transfer was a clear act of intimidation, a warning to all digital critics. Albert was now at the mercy of the very power he had challenged online. The ordeal had only just begun. At Nairobi's Central Police Station, Albert was processed and placed in a cell. He was in contact with friends, arranging bail, focused on freedom, not despair. But hours later, police claimed he'd died by suicide, allegedly striking his head against the cell wall. The official story was met with disbelief. Albert was a fighter, not someone likely to give up. For many, the suicide narrative felt like a cover-up, absolving the state and silencing a critic. A leaked phone recording from custody captured Albert's fear and shock. "Have you ever been apprehended? I have never experienced this before." These were not the words of a man contemplating self-harm, but of someone terrified by the machinery of the state. The recording contradicted the police account, fueling public suspicion. Albert's final hours were marked by fear, not resignation. The truth behind his death demanded answers. When Albert's family and lawyer viewed his body, the evidence was clear. This was no suicide. His skull was deformed, blood crusted around his nose, and his body bore bruises and abrasions. These injuries told of a violent struggle, not self-inflicted harm. The family's request to inspect the cell was denied, deepening suspicions of a cover-up. Authorities blocked independent access, controlling the narrative and evidence. The scheduled post-mortem became critical. The family insisted on an independent pathologist. Albert's body itself became the most powerful evidence against the official account. The fight for truth had moved from the police station to the mortuary. News of Albert's death exploded online, with #Justice for Albert Ojwang trending nationwide. Kenyans from all walks of life demanded answers, turning Albert's digital echo into a national outcry. Political leaders, including former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, called for top-level accountability, linking Albert's death to a pattern of state violence against Gen Z. Civil society and legal groups, like the Law Society of Kenya and Amnesty International, demanded a transparent investigation and public naming of responsible officers. Homa Bay Governor Gladys Wanga joined the call for a credible probe. Authorities responded by suspending several officers and launching investigations, but skepticism remained. The Independent Policing Oversight Authority began its own inquiry, interviewing DCI officers involved. For a nation weary of impunity, the real test was whether these steps would lead to real justice. Albert's case had become a symbol of the fight for accountability. Albert's death is part of a disturbing trend: state pressure on digital dissent in Kenya. Criticizing powerful officials online has become a high-risk act, creating a chilling effect on free speech. Recent cases, like that of Rose and Jerry, show how digital activism can lead to arrest and persecution. The state's legal and security apparatus is increasingly used to silence effective online critics. This suppression threatens the constitutional right to free expression and undermines democracy. For many young Kenyans, social media is the main arena for political participation. When criticism is met with arrests, the message is clear: only sanctioned speech is safe. Albert's death forces a national reckoning. Where is the line between criticism and crime? His story is a stark reminder of the human cost of speaking out in the digital age. As of June 9, 2025, the fight for justice for Albert Ojwang is just beginning. Suspensions and investigations are not enough. True justice demands full accountability for all involved. The autopsy must be transparent and its findings public. Albert's death must spark real police reform and an end to impunity. We must demand independent oversight, human rights training, and zero tolerance for extrajudicial violence. Remembering Albert is an act of resistance. His story must not fade into a statistic. The digital spaces he championed must continue to demand accountability and organize for change. #Justice for Albert Ojwang should be a sustained movement, not a fleeting trend. The fight for Albert is a fight for Kenya's soul, a nation where free speech is a lived reality. His voice is gone, but ours must now be louder.